to quit his seat. So that was up for election. Well, that by-election has been had in Sydney, and the governing coalition has lost its one-seat majority now.
Oh, very good.
Which is a lot of fun for the Liberal National Coalition, which just shows how right-wing the Liberals are in Australia, that they can actually go into coalition with Nationals. So, yes, it's been won by a local doctor, and she's an independent candidate. So she's said that this win should signal a return to decency, integrity and humanity in Australian government. I think she's been a bit idealistic there, but still. It means that the government's now going to be relying upon the other independent MPs to back them for confidence votes, and there's a number of them that have already said they're not going to do so. So that's...
All right, well, I have a question about her platform.
Oh, boy.
Where is her stance, or what is her stance on emus?
There it is.
Because Austin and I and Lexi got together and we restarted Pod and History X, and this episode hasn't been released yet, by the way.
Well, it will be by the time this comes out. Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go.
I think you shouldn't stand on emus. I think that's really the crux of it.
Well, if you don't know about the Great Emu War of 1932, you're going to want to listen to Pod and History X, because it is fucking tremendous. And I'm curious as to how she's going to deal with the current situation of emus.
Well, whether I knew about the Emu War or not, I'd still want to listen to Pod and History X.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you're going to want to listen to this episode because it's fucking
Unless,
hilarious.
of course, citation needed has already done it.
Excuse me. They only do stuff that we do, not the other way around.
First. we did Emperor Norton like our second episode. It took them fucking 3,000 episodes to get to Emperor Norton. So don't fucking tell me we copy citation needed, okay? They ran out of material. They went to us to find out.
Yeah, I mean, that was scraping a barrel, wasn't it? Yeah. So anyway, the other thing in Australia, just as a side note, is that the government, despite them being despicable in so many ways, they've actually decided to pass a law saying that that no child can be refused entry into a school, whether it's a religious school or a state school or a private school, based upon their sexuality. Which is a very positive step. Yeah. Obviously, it's just a shame.
But still no rights for emus.
Yeah, it's just a shame everything else they do, including the emu protection scheme, doesn't quite work out. So, a bit closer to home, I did speak before about the Malaysian change of leadership there as well, that there was the election about 6 weeks ago, and that the outgoing Prime Minister had been accused of all sorts of nefarious financial transactions, including having been accused of pocketing what amounts to $700 million from a state development fund. Well, his wife has just been charged with money laundering and tax evasion as part of a massive corruption scandal.
Nice.
And she's known for to be a fan of luxury goods and jewellery and such like. So she's pleaded guilty to all 17 charges.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. So that
take that, Paul Manafort.
Yeah, we'll have to see when. But higher up the scale and also higher up in the hemisphere, another former president of South Korea has been jailed for corruption. Which I think makes about 4 of them now. There's more of them in jail than there are actually outside of jail alive currently. It seems like it's just a natural transition. You become president of South Korea, and then after you finish being the president, you go to jail.
Yeah, like we barely have 4 presidents that are alive in this country. I mean, we really don't have that many living former presidents, and they have all of their former presidents, and all of them are in jail except this current one. Yet,
and unfortunately, the best of your former presidents is almost dead, isn't he? Carter. So
Bush, Walker.
Oh my God. Yeah, I have to say, Carter's doing better than Bush, I think.
Or we're talking about Carter? I thought we were talking about Bush. He was clearly the greatest president.
The tip-off should have been the great part.
Yeah.
I heard him, and I stay with my opinion. Bush.
Yeah. Well done. I didn't.
It should have been.
I never thought
Bush
you were such a big fan of Bush myself. But
I enjoy Bush. Neatly trimmed though.
Well, Tom,
we got a lot of Bush in those 8 years or combined 12 years. I wanted just a little trimmed Bush. No.
So anyway, this former president Lee Myung-bak has been he's been jailed on charges of bribery, embezzlement, and abuse of power in order to pay the equivalent of $11.5 million as a fine. So it's it's nice if you got that kind of money to pay a fine. Really, it just shows how corrupt he was. Really,
it would be very nice to have that much money.
Yeah, at least he's just paying a fine. Trump would be using that money to buy a hooker.
Well,
so
by an election, isn't it?
Porn star, not hooker.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a big difference. You're right. There's actually a very big difference.
There's a singular difference that if you film it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Oh, please
and then it becomes
let that exist.
So much more expensive.
Please let there be a Trump Stormy Daniels sex tape out there. Please let that exist. Oh, yeah, I'd watch it.
What?
I'd totally watch it. You can't. It's a piece of historical document.
You fucking sick puppy.
Yeah,
I know.
What do you mean? I'm a historian. I want to. It's history. I promise. It's just research. Okay.
So
on,
I spoke before about Hungary as well, where they were bringing in all sorts of anti-immigration laws, where they were making it illegal to help an immigrant of any description. They've decided that it's not just people who are immigrants now are a problem, but they've decided to bring in a law that makes it illegal to be homeless.
Yeah. What?
So it effectively outlaws living in the street, and it's been approved by the Parliament, and allows police to arrest anybody who's rough sleeping in the interests of society as a whole. Apparently, so that means that anybody who doesn't have somewhere to sleep is picked up by the police and put in a prison where they have somewhere to sleep. So,
in prison.
I don't think that's the intention, but it does seem like that's the outcome of this quite rabid anti-poor vagrancy law.
Now, I think I know the question that everybody's asking. What about people who are camping? Because they're technically sleeping outside.
Well, yeah.
If you have a tent, does that count?
Well, I don't know, because in Europe, I don't know about over there in the States, but you know those pop-up tents that you have, you can buy. They seem to be the in thing as far as trends go within the homeless. That's what most homeless people now have for sleeping in, rather than just sleeping on a park bench or under some kind of doorway. So I don't know what the qualification would be. I suppose you'd have to prove you actually had somewhere else to go. Wow. If you could prove that you were sleeping in a tent, but you actually did have a bed somewhere, then I suppose that might get you out of it. But
relax. I'm sorry, crazy. Officer. I'm only pretending to be poor.
But yes, it's an interesting idea that they'd have to actually prove that in some way. And potentially ruin a camping trip.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's hilarious. That's something that
unintended
would
consequences.
Easily happen to me.
See, these are the important questions.
Yeah.
Ooh, unintended consequences would be a great podcast name.
Anyway, moving on from the camping aspect, because to be honest,
sure.
the only way I know anything about camping is when I dance like a girl. So, I know Tom was previously interested in what was going on with the separatist movement within Barcelona in Spain, as far as they previously had the referendum to vote to separate from the rest of Spain, which was exactly, at the time of this news item, was exactly a year ago. There's been 180,000 demonstrators on the streets across Barcelona and other Catalonian cities. Some of them clashed with the police. They took over like the tracks of the trains and invaded government buildings and blocked motorways, your freeways, just in protest.
In favour or against?
In support of the referendum result, the anniversary of it, wanting to actually bring attention back to it, obviously, since it'd been a year down the line and they were wanting it to not be forgotten. That's what the vote had been. So, obviously, still they're not independent, but there's still, if there's 180,000 people willing to go out there and actually protest, there's still an appetite for it, shall we say, even a year down the line. So I think it's a problem that's not going away for the Spanish government. Put it that way.
Interesting.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that's weird.
So yes, so that's the updates. But I'll take you a bit further away again, just briefly for a new item, which is in India. Two men have been arrested in North India, in a place called Patna, after a video emerged showing a woman being raped next to the river Ganges, which was then shared on social media. It seems that the men took turns to assault the victim and film it at the same time. Now, the woman had been dragged from the river Ganges, where she was bathing on a Sunday morning. The reason why this is extra fucked up, rather than just a woman being raped, is that her response, which can be found on the actual footage, is her pleading with the actual rapist to stop because of the sanctity of the river, which is revered within Hinduism. So it seems that there's two explanations for this in my mind. Either the indoctrination of religion is so strong that the poor woman deeply cares and respects a fetid piece of disease-ridden water more than she does her own body, or she maybe just recognises that that's how the men feel and she's trying to actually use the one weapon that might actually stop them from raping her. I don't know which way around it is, but it seems that the police weren't willing to do anything about it initially. It was only when it became more widespread reported that they decided to do something after she'd originally gone and complained, and they turned her away at the police, which is pretty awful, really.
Yeah. No kidding.
It's an increasing problem in India, unfortunately, is rape, because the crime statistics put it down that there's a woman raped every 13 minutes, and that's just reported.
Wow.
That's just the reported ones in India.
Holy shit!
Now I have a question. Do you know when these men will be appointed to the Supreme Court? Is it month, next month?
To be honest, I don't think they will, purely because they're brown.
Good point.
Yeah, that is a good point.
I don't know, though. We made an exception for the black rapists. So.
Yeah, how's that Cosby nomination going?
No, not that black rapist. Not that one.
So, but yes,
that's sad.
The institutionalized, rape. Same over there in India, unfortunately, with a lot of the spiritual leaders are also guilty of rape. It does seem to be more often that they're actually raping women rather than young boys, like the Catholic Church goes for. But still,
that doesn't make it better.
It's still the abuse of that power and sexual exploitation. It is, unfortunately, seemingly endemic of religion, sadly. So,
Wow, that stat that you threw out, what was it? One every so often?
One every 13 minutes.
13
reported.
minutes. That's
only reported.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
That is absurd, man. Like, I don't even know where you could begin to address that. I mean, that's an epidemic at that point.
Oh, it's to do with the value of women,
numbers,
in society over there.
I know their population is far greater than the United States, but I bet you that rate, it's not every 13 minutes in this country, but I bet you it's bad here as well.
Yeah,
I guarantee it.
I mean, the world's biggest democracy, and this exponentially increase in the numbers of people, and despite people bathing in basically diseased water and thinking it's holy, there's still an improvement gradually of living standards over there and health and